It's like being awake in a dream, like watching a movie play out in my mind. Other lives, other versions of me, existing across the multiverse, transmitting a message, a broadcast. Do you remember? We're all eternal, stars wandering through infinity, on a quantum journey back to self. Are you ready?
You are listening to Wandering Star Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 1, Invisible Cube of Genius. If you have not listened to Season 1, we highly recommend that you do so. If you do not listen to the entire season, please go back and listen to number 13. This one will make much more sense if you do. Thank you for joining. Enjoy.
In the center of a busy city square, lined with young trees and park benches, resides a circular fountain. It stands proudly, its weathered white stone tinged with a gentle patina of time. 3 tiers rise gracefully, each level smaller than the one below it. At the top, a delicate lotus flower is carved into the stone. Water pours from the petals and gently cascades down each tier, flowing and spiraling down until it tumbles into a large round basin at the bottom. It's not elaborate. It's not the kind of fountain you would go out of your way to visit. And yet, I did. Again. I traveled through space and time, unsure of my final destination, yet knowing there was more to be uncovered. The magnetic pull was so powerful before I knew it, I landed here, standing before this mystical fountain. The memory lives just as I had left it. I pause and listen to the symphony of this vibrant city. Each sound contains a story. I feel them all coming to life around me. I feel tuned in to each and every footstep, every word being spoken, every laugh, every bird song, every leaf rustling, every heartbeat. All senses heightened to a level I've never experienced or thought possible. I feel all life around me, existing within me. For a moment, it's overwhelming. So many stories to unravel, so many smiles to discover, so many ideas to gather, so much mystery to remember. I just about get swept away in the drama of it all, and then I see him. Standing across the square on the other side of the fountain. The sleeves on his slate gray tunic are rolled up to just below his elbows. He's holding a large tuning fork in his right hand. His emerald green eyes look at me with expectation. Just the sight of him almost takes my breath away. All the noise around me fades, and I remember. Unity. I want to run over and hug him and tell him I missed him and that I understand now. But to him I never left. So I smile instead and give him a nod to let him know that I'm ready. We must finish what we started. I take a deep breath and relax into this memory, knowing there's more to be revealed. Across the square, my grandfather is hard at work. His expression is focused. I see his lips moving ever so slightly, a quiet mumble. He gazes intently around the square, carefully measuring all life within it. A boy, about 13, walks in front of my grandfather and crosses the square towards me. The hood on his thick gray sweatshirt is pulled up over his head, despite the warmth of the sun. Straight jet black hair hides his eyes. His head hangs low. His shoulders are slumped. He drags his feet when he walks. A banged-up black skateboard hangs from his right hand. The wheels are red. He wishes he was invisible. I can feel it. A rising tide of concern for this boy wells up within me, but my attention is diverted at the sound of a loud squeal. A young boy, barely 3 years old, cries out with glee at the fountain's edge. Dark curly ringlets gently bounce as he plunges his tiny hands in and out of the cool water. Another loud squeal erupts from his plump little frame. He dunks his hands deeper, submerging his pudgy forearms as he tries to grab a shiny coin at the bottom of the pool. He can't quite reach it and instead begins to smack the water as if he's playing a drum. This is hilarious to him. A giggle that builds into the most infectious laughter fills the open square. This level of joy is contagious. Others in the square pause what they are doing to briefly witness this display of jubilant play. Everyone except the boy's mother. She sits beside him at the fountain's edge, her dainty hands wrapped around his round belly as he continues to play water drums. Her body instinctively ensures his safety, yet she's not really here. Her absence is distinct. Silky black hair drapes down her narrow back. She stares across the square blankly. She's lost in a haze of gray smoke, possessed by a story that has sucked the life out of her. I feel her sorrow, a deep, hollow ache. The feeling of excruciating heartbreak tempered by catatonic depression. Even the dynamic performance coming from her son doesn't break her vacant trance. I feel the toddler staring at me and return his gaze. His dark eyes twinkle with curious excitement. His expression is animated, a gleeful smile accentuated by deep dimples, tiny caverns of joy nestled in his chubby cheeks. His padded butt bulges as he sways back and forth to a rhythm only he can hear. I feel his innocence. I feel the purity of his heart. It ripples throughout the square. I see my grandfather witness this as well. Still mumbling under his breath, he's making calculations of the entire square. For a moment, I decide to observe through his eyes. No longer feeling the spectacle, I experience it now through the lens of mathematics. I see a perfect cube placed over the square. In the center of the cube, the base of the fountain, a circle that becomes a sphere within the cube. Within the fountain sphere, a pyramid encapsulating the movement of the water, spouting up from the top of the fountain, cascading down to the base. Through his eyes, I see the dimensions of the space pop up, invisible numbers floating through the air. The geometry of the square is coming to life. Every shape, every structure, every water molecule, all life within this cube carries a subtle vibration, like musical notes waiting to be fine-tuned. There is a specific chord we must strike, a frequency that will harmonize the entire cube. The space is a living, breathing organism, all energies within it interwoven into one dynamic system. I watch as he breathes it all in and gives me a subtle nod. He's ready. The toddler playing in the fountain knows what's coming. He looks at me intently. His excitement is palpable. He seems to understand that his role in this endeavor is quite significant. He dips his hands back in the water, palms open, tiny fingers swaying back and forth just beneath the surface. He pulls them up quickly and claps them together vigorously, water splashing all around him. His mother is oblivious. He lets out a loud giggle and wiggles his padded butt back and forth, dancing to the song of the city. The water is now infused with his childlike curiosity, his radiant joy, his innocence, his connection to the all of everything. He breathes magic, wonder, and remembrance into the water. The memory is now etched into the flow of the water, endlessly cycling up to the top of the fountain, then gracefully rippling back down to the base, the eternal fountain of youth. Across the square, I lock eyes with my grandfather. His emerald eyes twinkle in the afternoon sun. He strikes his tuning fork. I begin to hum lightly. We both look at the boy. In quiet concentration, he gently moves his hands around in the water, softly swaying back and forth. I begin to quietly chant the mantra, matching the frequency of the tuning fork. My grandfather acts as the conductor. He begins to move slowly around the cube, directing the energy. He strikes the tuning fork again. It radiates a powerful vibroacoustic phenomena. I feel it across the square. An excited shiver ripples through my body. Invisible sound waves soar across the cube. A surge of power swells within me. I chant, louder and louder. The music feels like it's being pulled out of me. I'm no longer able to control the volume of my voice. I let it out with wild abandon. My grandfather strikes the fork again with focused intention. Resonant waves surf across the pool at the base of the fountain. The memory has now permeated the entire cube, drifting and dancing into the consciousness of every being in the square, like a forgotten song, remembered at last. I look at the boy with the skateboard. At first, he remains motionless, suspended in time. His hood obscures his face, and his shoulders rise and fall slowly as he breathes deeply, absorbing the long-forgotten song that fills the square. The black skateboard slips from his hand and falls to the ground, red wheels facing up. He raises both hands to his head, palms open, and briefly holds them there, cupping his face for a moment before rubbing his eyes in a circular motion. He shoves the hood off his head and raises his face to the sun, no longer hiding in darkness. A remarkable transformation to witness. He stands with a newfound confidence, no longer shrinking, but fully embracing his own brilliance. His spine is straight. His shoulders are relaxed, not hunched or defensive. He pushes his dark hair out of his eyes and calmly looks around the square, his expression both serene and mystified. He stares directly at me. Without breaking eye contact, he gracefully uses his foot to flip the skateboard over and slowly rolls towards me. There's a twinkle in his dark eyes, just like the toddler. He grins at me, a broad smile that reveals a small gap between his front teeth. It's hard to imagine there's an entire world happening outside of this moment. He comes to a halt in front of me, standing taller now that he's no longer hunched over. In this moment, he feels like a completely different person from the one I saw just minutes ago. Without a word, he pulls me into a tight hug, exhaling deeply before stepping back to meet my gaze. His eyes sparkle. A single tear slides down his cheek. He gives a silent nod of gratitude, then turns and rolls away. He's going home. Before, I sensed a reluctance, like he was roaming the city trying to avoid going home. Now there's a newfound excitement as he swiftly coasts out of the square. I decide to follow and observe this. He weaves around pedestrians on his skateboard, head held high, drinking in the afternoon sun. He lets out a playful laugh as he whizzes down the busy street towards the outskirts of the city. There's a new myth within him coming to life. Like the toddler at the fountain, his body moves and sways to a song only he can hear. He comes to a stop in front of a weathered single-story concrete house. The pale yellow paint flakes and peels from the walls, revealing the worn surface beneath. The tin roof is in disrepair, and a deep crack runs through the facade, with smaller cracks branching out from it, like a web. Cheap plywood covers a hole where a window once was. A battered soccer ball hurtles towards him from across the street. A skinny young boy in cut-off gray shorts calls out for him to throw it back. He hops off the skateboard, a hint of cockiness in his step, before launching the ball back to the boy with a grin. The young boy stares at him suspiciously, sensing a sudden and dramatic change in his neighbor's demeanor. He gives a slight nod of gratitude before returning to his game. The front door on the pale yellow house creaks loudly as the boy pushes it open. He leans his skateboard against a wall before letting the door slam behind him. The inside of the house is cramped and dim, filled with the stench of urine and stale beer. It's one open space with a tiny bedroom in the back of the house. Just the boy and his dad live here. A stained and lopsided couch spans one side of the room. Across from that, the boy's dad is passed out in an old recliner. His large belly hangs out from under a white tank top, dark hair peeking from underneath. The shirt is stained and damp. A tipped-over beer can rests between his arm and the chair. The boy doesn't seem fazed by this scene. He walks past his dad and heads towards the kitchenette, opening the refrigerator. He scans the contents of the interior, then lets out a sigh before shutting the door. There's nothing but a few cans of beer and some hot sauce. He faces the sink and twists the faucet on. The rusty bowl creaks as water sputters out. He cups his hands beneath the stream, letting the water run over them. Just like the toddler, he pours the memory, the forgotten song, into it. He fills the sink, allowing the water to wash over his hands, gathering his energy as it floods the basin. Just as it's about to spill over, he shuts it off and walks out the door. Moments later, his dad stirs awake, stumbles towards the sink. He blinks, noticing it's filled with water. At first, irritation rises within him, but then, without a second thought, he plunges his head into it. He's caught in the haze of drunkenness, gray smoke that clouds his mind. As his head rises from the water, his eyes snap wide open, crystal clear, the fog of stupor vanishing in an instant. He wipes his face, his gaze sharp and alert. He looks around, taking in the disarray of their world. He hangs his head in shame. How did it all come to this? His whole existence has been consumed by booze. The shame crashes over him like a tidal wave, only to recede just as swiftly. There's no room to linger in that darkness. He's wasted enough time. He must do better. In a flash, the space changes. The mess fades. The light brightens. The air feels fresher. Like magic, the place transforms into something more than it ever was. He sits on the couch, anxiously waiting for his son to return. At last, the boy steps through the door. He surveys his home and slowly begins to nod his head, as if he expected this. His dad leaps off the couch, standing tall before him. Without a word, they embrace. The story of their struggles fades into the ether as a new chapter, full of possibility, is born. Back at the fountain, I observe the toddler's mom. Her son beats the water drums near the fountain's edge, sending droplets shimmering through the air, nearly drenching her delicate pink blouse. She sits up, spine straightened, eyes fixed on the flowing water, as if entranced by its movement. There's something otherworldly in her gaze, a peaceful stillness that has settled over her. Whatever shadowed her spirit before has dissolved into the mist. In an instant, she appears to shed a decade from her age. A radiant smile blooms on her face, as if the very sight of her son is a revelation, seen anew through the lens of wonder. She leans closer to the water, her fingers gently tapping the surface in rhythm with her son. For a brief moment, they exist in a realm of their own, where time seems to fold and stretch. A sacred bond is woven between them, both ancient and new. Though she gave birth to him nearly 3 years ago, only now does she truly step into the present, her spirit fully entwined with his. She slips off her wedge sandals as she lifts her son into her arms. Without hesitation, she steps into the fountain, the cool water rippling around her as she wades towards the heart of the cascade, where the water spills down like a gentle rain. Their laughter dances through the square, unburdened and radiant. She stands drenched, yet unfazed by it, as if she has become one with the flow of the fountain. Her son's delighted squeals ripple throughout the cube, a joyous anthem, as he feels her presence in its fullest form. After a few minutes, they emerge from the fountain, laughing and soaked. Something has drastically shifted within her, like a spark igniting a hidden flame. Her whole being seems to have come alive, glowing with an inner light that radiates outward. It's as if the very core of her energy has been awakened, filling the air around her with a subtle yet undeniable brilliance. Her eyes shine with newfound clarity. Her posture opens. A quiet confidence emanates from her, transforming her into someone entirely new, as if she's basking in the full force of her own vitality. She catches my eye as she squeezes water from her long dark hair. She gives me a quiet wink as she gathers their belongings. She gently lifts her child and places him into a posh stroller, setting her sandals on the mesh shelf beneath him. Still smiling, she walks barefoot, the cool pavement beneath her feet, as she pushes him out of the city square. Their laughter lingers in the air as they walk home, a fleeting chord in the city's endless symphony. I decide to observe more. They live just a few blocks from the fountain, in one of the city's most upscale neighborhoods. A friendly doorman spots her as she approaches and greets her with a wave. As they near the building, he quickly swings the door open, a curious smile on his face as she hums softly to herself, her smile glowing as she pushes the stroller aside. He seems surprised to see her barefoot and drenched, a stark contrast to the composed, quiet, and demure woman he's accustomed to seeing. She doesn't seem to notice the trail of water droplets in her wake as she strides towards the elevator, her steps light and graceful. They ride the elevator to the top floor, where theirs is the only apartment. Stepping out, they walk towards the door. She enters a code into a keypad, and the door clicks open. Inside, the space doesn't feel like a home. It feels sterile, untouched, as though it hasn't truly been lived in. A large, abstract chandelier hangs above the foyer, casting soft, geometric shadows on the white walls. Ahead, the living room sprawls, its floor-to-ceiling glass windows framing a stunning view of the city, while designer furniture sits perfectly in place. It's hard to believe a 3-year-old lives here, the space so immaculate, so untouched by the chaos of childhood. The walls are nearly bare, adorned only with minimalist artwork, clean, precise. The floor is a sleek blend of white and gray marble, cool and polished. There's not a single photograph in the place, no evidence of the family that inhabits this space. no glimpse of their story. I sense this place has been her prison. I feel into this, and a flash of her life flickers. Isolated, quiet, a world defined by perfection, but devoid of love. I see her husband. He's tall and slim, a businessman with sharp, calculated movements. Always in a black suit, his hair slicked back with precision and an excess of gel, he exudes an air of control and wealth. Handsome in a way that demands attention, he carries a black briefcase that seems to symbolize the life he's built. Sleek, polished, and undeniably successful. His wealth is apparent, and he's proud of it, flaunting his accomplishments while never truly acknowledging the emptiness beneath. From the outside, their life appears perfect. A beautiful home, a successful career, a well-put-together family. But beneath the surface, she's been drowning in misery. Every day, she feels the weight of her own isolation in this pristine, sterile world. She knew he was cheating on her. She's known for a while. But acknowledging it felt like a betrayal to herself, a confirmation of the truth that she was too afraid to face. Fear has gripped her. Fear of losing everything she's built, of losing the carefully crafted life he's provided. The thought of what would happen if she confronted him, too terrifying to bear. He is a womanizer. There's always another woman. He sneaks around with one after another, his lies as smooth as his suits. When he isn't indulging in his affairs, he drowns his dissatisfaction in alcohol, his sharp words and manipulative behavior cutting deeper with each passing day. Gaslighting is a form of art to him, twisting reality until she questions her own sanity, making her feel like she's the one who's lost control. She knows what's happening, but the constant emotional toll has made her doubt her own worth, her own strength. In the face of it all, she feels small and helpless, unable to break free from the prison of her own making. The fountain stirred something deep within her, something she had long forgotten. It sparked a sense of self-love, of empowerment, and a renewed radiance that had been buried beneath years of neglect. For the first time in ages, she feels truly alive, a spark of truth igniting inside of her. The weight of her old life seems to lift as she realizes, with absolute clarity, that she deserves more than the hollow existence she's been living. A shiver runs through her, a jolt of energy that awakens something deep inside. It's a sensation she hasn't felt in years, maybe never. Freedom. It courses through her like an electric current, raw and wild. With this newfound resolve, she moves through the apartment, her steps purposeful, her mind clear. Each movement feels deliberate, a powerful declaration of change. She gathers her belongings and packs them into bags. Her son sleeps soundly in his stroller, his soft breaths a gentle rhythm in the stillness. She lifts the bag onto her shoulders, the weight both grounding and empowering. As she stands before the door, she takes one final glance around the penthouse, the cold, pristine space she called home. A quiet sorrow tugs at her heart for her husband. He's so lost, so adrift in his own darkness. In the past, this sorrow would have held her captive, keeping her tethered to a life of quiet despair. But now there is a knowing, an understanding deep within her that she cannot fix him, cannot save him from the path he's chosen. She can only save herself, and perhaps her son. With a soft breath, she whispers a quiet prayer into the air, a remembrance of the fountain's mystical powers, as if offering a piece of its magic to the space she's leaving behind. Maybe, one day, he will remember. She walks out the door and steps into freedom. Back at the fountain, my grandfather stands quietly, observing everything, his gaze steady and calm. The air feels strangely still, as though the moment itself is holding its breath. I step forward, drawn to the fountain's cool embrace. My fingers graze the surface, sending ripples that stretch across the water like a whispered secret. I plunge my arms in, the cold liquid sending a shiver through my skin. The sensation is electric, primal. And then something shifts. My grandfather, once standing strong, the quiet conductor, begins to dissolve. Time fractures in an instant, slipping through my grasp like the water between my fingers. Seconds stretch and warp, collapsing in on themselves. In a blink, he's fading, slipping further from me, his presence unraveling like a thread unwinding from a forgotten tapestry. I look down and realize I am older now, too. My arms, once youthful, now bear the marks of time. Wrinkles appear, faint but unmistakable, as though 25 years have passed in mere moments. A strange dizziness washes over me, like stepping into a memory that isn't mine, yet feels deeply familiar. And then realization strikes like a quiet thunderclap. This, everything I'm experiencing, has already passed. What felt like the present is now nothing more than a memory, slipping away. My grandfather is gone, his absence a quiet weight that drifts through the air. I choke back a silent sob. A sudden pang of sadness grips my body, sharp and unrelenting. For a brief moment, I let the sadness wash over me, surrendering to the weight of it, allowing the deep ache of separation to fill every corner of my being. It feels as if something vital, something irreplaceable, has slipped away, like a piece of me has been lost forever. I close my eyes and I feel him, his presence forever woven into the fabric of this place. The air hums with the subtle resonance of a tuning fork, its vibration stretching out and filling the cube, reaching deep into the core of me. I breathe in the lingering magic of that moment. It hasn't faded. It's still alive within me, like a flicker of light in the dark, a quiet warmth that refuses to dim. I open my eyes and see my reflection in the water, a silent witness to the passage of time. I look down at myself, at the dark blue sweater I wear, sleeves pushed up to my elbows. Black, tight pants cling to my slim legs. My body suddenly feels older, subtle, yet unmistakable. The once bustling square is now empty. No voices, no footsteps, no jubilant squeals from the enigmatic toddler. Just the steady flow of the fountain, its water holding the echoes of all that has passed. It feels as if the fountain is the keeper of memories, its ancient waters reflecting the fragments of time. And then, in an instant, the geometry of the cube reappears. It rises from the depths of the water, its edges glowing faintly, the angles sharp and precise. The math of it, the intricate, unseen structure of the world, comes back to life, vivid and tangible before my eyes. In the center of it all, I see him again, my grandfather. He's always been here, tucked within the lines and curves of time itself. The cube, the sphere, the pyramid. Symbols that hold meaning beyond understanding, dance in front of me, shimmering in the water's depths. They oscillate together in perfect harmony, each shape carrying a piece of something greater, something eternal. And for a moment, I am connected to it all. The past, the present, and the future, all existing at once. Time bends, and I'm not just a witness, but a part of this intricate dance, this cosmic flow that stretches far beyond the confines of the square. I decide it's time to go home. My apartment building feels like a hidden sanctuary, an oasis tucked away in the heart of the city. It stands apart like a hidden secret, its age-stained glass and weathered stone facade contrasting sharply with the sleek, contemporary towers that surround it. The vibrant stained glass windows seem alive, shifting with the play of light, casting soft, colorful shadows onto the stone walkway below. The lobby, with its high ceilings and polished wood accents, whispers of old-world craftsmanship. Soft, natural light pours in through hidden windows, creating an almost ethereal glow. The interior is an extension of the building's charm. Wooden beams that stretch to high ceilings, worn stone floors that tell their own story, walls that hold the secrets of all who've lived here before. I cross the lobby, the sound of my footsteps echoing softly against the polished floors, and make my way to the elevator. As I approach, the door opens immediately, as though it's been waiting just for me. The cool metallic scent of the elevator's interior greets me. I press the button for the 11th floor, the top floor, and lean back against the sleek walls. The elevator hums to life, and I feel the gentle lurch as it begins its ascent. Through the small window, I catch glimpses of the streets, the distant skyline, the winding maze of traffic, all moving in a rhythm that feels far removed from the stillness inside this building. The hallway on the 11th floor is bathed in a dim amber light. I walk down the corridor, my footsteps barely making a sound, and stop outside my apartment. The moment I open the door, I am hit with the absolute majesty that is this space. The air feels charged with inspiration, like every corner is alive with possibility. As soon as my feet cross the threshold, I feel it. A surge of something intangible, a wave of creative brilliance that rushes over me. The furniture and art create an eclectic mix of ancient and new. The room feels like a living museum, where every piece tells its own story. Vibrant, colorful rugs stretch across the wooden floors, their intricate patterns spilling out in bursts of reds, greens, and yellows. One side of the room is lined with large arched windows, stretching from floor to ceiling, offering an uninterrupted view that feels like a painting. The city sprawls out below, a mix of lights, buildings, and rooftops, bathed in orange and pink hues from the setting sun. I continue to take in the wonder of this space. My gaze drifts around the room until something catches my eye. A painting hanging on the wall between the open kitchen and the dining area. It's simple, yet striking. A treble clef, its swirling curves filled with movement and life. The black lines of the clef seem to dance against the canvas. I step closer, drawn by an irresistible pull, eager to take in the intricate details. Up close, I realize that it's not just a simple treble clef painted on the canvas. What seemed like a solid, unified image from a distance reveals itself as something far more complex. The painting is composed of intricate math equations, symbols, and numbers. The shapes pulse, alive with mystery, as if the very essence of music, the language of the universe, has been etched into the fabric of the piece. The artist who made this knew. This treble clef is a doorway, a portal where the sacred and the mathematical intertwine. The numbers are not just figures, they're codes of the cosmos, fragments of a grander design, thoughts of God encrypted into the very strokes of the pen. A smile spreads across my face as I remember who made this extraordinary piece of art. The boy with the skateboard. A flood of memories rushes over me, overwhelming and vivid. He and I are good friends. He's an incredible artist. He gave me this painting, a gift in gratitude for that day at the fountain. I see him now, back in his studio, a vast industrial space, alive with the energy of creation. It's more than just an art studio. It's a temple of invention, where his mind flows freely, unrestrained by convention or expectation. He's not just an artist. He's a visionary, a rare talent whose work transcends the ordinary. His genius isn't just in his technical skill, though that is extraordinary. It's in his ability to tap into something beyond the human experience, to channel the divine into every piece he creates. I feel goosebumps creeping up and down my spine. This piece of art, this entire home, is buzzing with genius. I drift through the space, my gaze lingering on every nook and corner, until I find myself on the other side of the room, drawn to the windows that open to the sprawling city below. A piano rests in one corner, its keys waiting to be touched. A keyboard hums with potential. Flutes and clarinets line the wall, resting on their stands. And a cello stands tall, its curves elegant and inviting. There's enough instruments here for a small symphony. I let my fingers glide across the piano keys, releasing a cascade of notes that fill the room with the gentle flow of a musical scale. This is where the magic unfolds. I teach music here, in the very heart of my home. It's a space where students come to discover and express themselves, a sanctuary of learning and creativity. It's here that I share the language of music, helping others find their own voice in every note. I see a 12-year-old girl, straight black hair framing her face as she concentrates on the clarinet, the instrument an extension of her. Her smile, framed by her slightly crooked teeth, lights up the room with a quiet joy. She wears a pale yellow blouse, soft and light, like a radiant sunbeam. She loves coming here, just as everyone does. The space, alive with melody and rhythm, draws people in. This is a place to explore, to learn and create. Here, music isn't merely taught, it's experienced, it's embodied. I suddenly notice the soft trickle of water, a sound so faint it seems to belong to another world. As I follow the sound, my eyes are drawn to a smaller marble replica of my grandfather's table in the pagoda. It rests quietly, its surface always filled with water, a gentle pool about 3 feet wide. The equation, delicate and precise, is etched into the surface. A soft gasp escapes me, my hand gently resting over my heart. A wave of emotions crashes over me as I'm flooded with memories of the days in the pagoda with my grandfather. This table, it's another portal, a bridge to a realm brimming with possibility and purpose. This, too, was a gift from my friend, the boy with the skateboard. The water, ever flowing, creates a subtle fountain effect. The table is more than just a decorative piece. It's a reminder, a vessel that carries with it a memory, an echo of the past that fills the air with ingenuity. It activates something deeper within the children when they come here to play. This space is an incubator, alive with untamed possibility and boundless potential. It's where raw talent is nurtured and genius is brought to life. Suddenly, a wave of unsteadiness washes over me, as if I'm caught in a powerful gust of wind, one that carries with it stories of virtuosity and mastery. Fleeting glimpses of lives transformed, ignited by that luminous moment at the fountain. They flash before me, shimmering like a fleeting hologram. I see the woman with the toddler. She is an enchantress of design, weaving the essence of the fountain into every creation. The fabrics are alive with her radiance, infused with a brilliance that wraps around the wearer, igniting a quiet power within. Each person who adorns themselves in her garments awakens to their own magnificence, touched by the magic she breathes into every thread. I see the boy with the skateboard's dad. He too is an artist, a sculptor by trade. His hands move with intention, breathing life into scrap metal and reclaimed wood. With each twist and turn, he transforms these raw materials into intricate forms that carry a powerful energy, a force that resonates deeply with anyone who encounters them. Images of monumental sculptures flash before me, towering creations that pulse with life, as if drawn directly from the heart of nature itself. Each creation is a masterpiece, meticulously crafted to channel the primal forces of wind, earth, and fire. His work transcends traditional boundaries, pulling the viewer into a realm where art and nature intertwine. It's an incredible transformation, from the man who once did nothing but drink and sit in his recliner, lost in a haze of gray smoke. Now he is a force of creative energy, shaping the world with his hands. I feel myself getting swept up in the whirlwind of his newfound passion, caught in the current of his excitement and the raw inspiration that flows so freely from him now. His creativity is a testament to the power of change, a reminder that anything is possible when we allow the creative force of the universe to move through us. I see a chef, moving around an immaculate kitchen with quiet precision, every motion deliberate and measured. His hands move like an artist's, guided by years of skill and intuition, as he paints the canvas of the plate with delicate strokes of vibrant sauces. Each drop, each swirl is carefully considered, creating a landscape of color and texture. A true alchemist, he transmutes raw ingredients into something truly extraordinary. He pours his heart into every dish he creates, infusing each plate with codes of divinity. I see him flash a smile, revealing dimples, tiny caverns of joy nestled in his cheeks, and I gasp at the realization. The toddler. I stand at the center of a swirling vortex of genius, as images of their masterpieces flash around me. The joy, beauty, passion, and boundless inspiration flow through them freely. They have become vessels, allowing the divine to express itself without limitation. Boldly bearing their hearts, they allow their creativity to ripple out, inspiring others in its wake. I finally understand the magnitude of what my grandfather and I created that day at the fountain. Our union, our symmetry, my voice, and his mathematical genius didn't just awaken those around us from the dream. It sparked something deeper. It unleashed an uncontainable wave of creativity within them, pulling brilliance from the depths of their souls. The veil was lifted, and in its place, a new realm of possibility emerged, where everyone remembers their unique creative genius and is empowered to express their highest potentials. I see the faces of everyone in the cube that day, eyes twinkling with passion, each of them exuding a radiant magnetism, aliveness bursting from their bodies. It leaves me breathless, in awe of the endless possibilities of this mysterious universe. Time bends and warps, and I feel it all unfolding in the present. There is no past, no future, only the eternal now. The images around me fade, and I find myself stretched out alone on a chaise lounge in my apartment. I glance down at my arm, weathered with age, wrapped in a soft white cashmere sweater. I feel much older. My body feels weary. A peaceful stillness hangs in the air. I close my eyes and listen to the memories of all that has been created in my home, all that has been remembered, all that has become manifest. Across the room, the treble clef stirs, its lines swaying as numbers and symbols float upward in a graceful waltz. A single silvery note from the flute pirouettes across the room, while the cello releases a deep, silky drone. I feel it all. The delicate caress of a painter's brush, the ingenious alchemy of a chef crafting flavor from imagination, the symphonic cadence of an orchestra, the bold vision of a fashion designer daring to redefine beauty, the relentless curiosity and unwavering focus of a mathematician, and the idealistic, sacred imagery woven into the words of a storyteller. This is the essence of true freedom, made tangible in the boundless expression of a human creating art. The transmutation of suffering into a poetic masterpiece, a profound liberation of the soul, infinite, limitless, whole. I begin to feel as though I am weightless, drifting in a vast sea of pure genius. I feel my grandfather's arm reach toward me with a gentle, steady pull, as though he's guiding me home. His presence envelops me, a soothing warmth, a silent invitation to release. The sensation of pure surrender. Pieces of me unravel, fading into a brilliant tapestry of infinite potential. I dissolve into the vast expanse. Millions of particles suspend and merge, becoming one with the celestial symphony of the cosmos, where everything and nothing exist in perfect unity. A rush of exhilaration fills me, knowing this story is eternal. Infinite pathways, infinite timelines, infinite choices, branching across the quantum field, fractals of possibility weaving an ever-expanding web of connection and evolution. I am the silence and the symphony, the beginning and the end, both lost and found in the eternal, infinite cycle of existence.
Hi, Keish.
Hi, Hillary.
I was just thinking, wow, it's basically our 2-year anniversary from when we last released Wandering Star.
Yeah, crazy.
In about 2 years, and we're finally back with some new content.
Yeah. Some really fun stuff to talk about here.
Yeah, we've had a lot that's transpired over the last couple of years, and we'll definitely get to that. But let's first just talk a little bit about this story. And as you heard before the story, if you didn't listen to number 13, you should definitely listen to that because that'll make this one make so much more sense. But we decided to go back into the fountain with this. That was our intention. We did this session nearly 2 years ago, the summer of 2023. And we did it on Zoom because I was out in Idaho and you were on the East Coast. So maybe you want to talk about why we decided to go back into the story and why we didn't just continue into something else, something new.
Yeah. So at that time, I was still following the QHHT program, which is that the format is that you take the person into the death scene. And we didn't do that in number 13. We didn't see what happened to the girl. So we decided to go and see what happens to her.
Yeah. And I'm really glad we did because the story that unfolded was absolutely gorgeous. And we really didn't know. I mean, it seemed when we ended with number 13, it seemed like the natural kind of conclusion of a gorgeous story that began really with number one. So we didn't know what to expect going into it. And clearly there was more to be revealed at this mystical fountain.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because
so-
originally we thought that we would end where got into this current. We thought that with number one, when we started the experiment, that we would end when she got to the pirate life, the first season, the first session. We wanted to see originally what did she experience that got her, that landed her on this pirate ship. And we originally thought that would be the ending of it, like once we got to that point. And then it was so obvious that we needed to, that wasn't the final point. And so then, yeah, 13, it seemed like a pretty, it was so beautiful that
yeah,
we're pretty satisfied at that point.
we were pretty pleased with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of it in general. Yeah. And so, when we did this session for this one, we weren't sure if we were just going to hop back in and quickly witness the death and then move on to something else or what, but this is what came through. And what a stunning story. It was really cool to go back into that, to back into the fountain and see things with a lot more detail. In the last one, in number 13, it was kind of, the focus was more on the culmination of everything we had been doing together leading to this moment. And so I was less focused on the specific people that were in the square at the time. And this time, a lot more detail came through about who was in there, like the boy with the skateboard and the toddler and his mom. And another cool thing that happened in this one was that I was there as the granddaughter, as the sort of feminine energy in this, feeling everything. You know, it was really like I could feel every sound and I mean, it was like I could feel the heartbeats of people. Everything was so amplified. And it was all this very emotion based experience that I was having. And then I was able to, I wanted to really see like, what would it be? And this is so cool for me as somebody that in this lifetime does not see the world through the lens of a mathematician. So go into my grandfather's experience in that session and tell you how I was able to view everything from this opposite perspective, where looking through his eyes, like the geometry of the square completely came to life. And I was able to see like this just sort of normal city square turned into this invisible cube. And then the fountain turned into this like sphere within the cube. And then a pyramid rose up where the water was going within the pyramid. And it was, could see all these invisible numbers and lines floating everywhere. And I later understood the significance of these shapes. At the time, I was just really enamored with all of what was happening. But I later realized that the significance of like this perfect square and a perfect circle within the square represents the square is the masculine and the circle is the feminine. And when you have these two come into this perfect union, this harmony, then it creates this third energy, which is represented by the triangle or the pyramid. And that's this sort of new creation energy. And I was so unaware of that symbolism when we did the sessions. It was really cool to realize that later and to really look at it as the union of the grandfather and the granddaughter coming together and having this perfect balance be struck and this frequency release that then, you know, transforms the lives of everyone in the square. So that was cool. You had something come through too when you were contemplating or listening to the recording of the session about me going into my grandfather's, going in and yeah, basically into his mind.
Yeah. This one was interesting to go back and listen to because it was the first time ever that I was, to be honest, I was extremely annoyed while I was listening to it because there were two things that I couldn't get past. And this was one of them. It was the first thing was you were able to go into your grandfather's mind. And so without ruining or saying too much, a few sessions from now, the opposite, there's something that happens that questions that ability.
Mhm.
And so I became a bit overwhelmed by how is this going to work out, or how is this going to play out, where it was kind of similar to when we were in number 12 in season 1, when you're having all of these experiences that I felt like were this growth and this learning and all of these things coming together. And then number 12 felt like, to me, when we were in the session, it was like, oh my gosh, like, how did we end up back here? Like, how did you end up back here? And it was like, after all of that, how did you end up back here? And then it turned into this amazing, beautiful, incredibly beautiful story, obviously. But I had a similar feeling. And plus, we've taken this long break of a couple years, so I haven't listened to it for that long. And it was like, that same sort of, how is this going to play out, and how is this and so I get overwhelmed and think this isn't going to make sense to anyone. But then once I accept and know, no, this is exactly how it's supposed to be, and it will again be an incredibly beautiful understanding that comes through, and just trusting in that. But listening to it was very challenging. I was also kind of annoyed at myself because I get caught up in these in the seriousness of it in the moment. And this isn't really supposed to be that serious. This is supposed to be fun, and it is fun. But in the moment of going back and listening to it and thinking about what has transpired in my life and your life since then, is it's interesting.
Yeah, it was really nostalgic for me to listen to it again and then write it. I mean, I've sat down to try to write this story countless times over the last 2 years, and I just would stare at a blank page. Nothing was coming through, and I was getting really frustrated with myself. And the other stories, when I wrote them, they just flowed through effortlessly. I would sit and it would be done. Some of them I finished in a few days, the early ones that were a bit shorter. And so this was years. And so when I wrote it, when I sat down, I remember you and we've never stopped talking about Wandering Star over the last couple of years. We've just been trying to navigate other things in life and then figure out, what are we doing with this thing? And so in our recent conversations, I had finally, made this commitment to you and said, this story will be written by this date. And when I sat down to write and it started coming through, I was so excited. We're like, oh my gosh, it's back. Okay, here we go. And you got excited too. I mean, there was a lot of excitement building within each of us because, I'll speak for myself first. I mean, the 2-year hiatus at first began because of purely technical reasons. And we were living in different areas, and I was in a very remote part of Idaho and barely had any Wi-Fi. I truly don't even know how I had enough Wi-Fi to do that session on Zoom, honestly. I think that was the most Wi-Fi I had for the entire summer. As we would try to do certain things, and I just couldn't do anything. And so we said, okay, let's just put this on hold for now. And I had basically downloaded a ton of information in those first 13 sessions of Wandering Star. Just a quick reminder, I really didn't know about any of this stuff when we started doing these sessions. So when you kind of stand back and look at all of them, the amount of information that came through for me to process was really quite substantial. And that, of course, in the writing process and the discussion process that we had in the creation of Wandering Star, there was certainly processing happening. But I really needed all of this time to integrate all of this stuff. And for myself personally, it was like I was going through such a transition myself, and my old life was dead. My life as a chef and a business owner and this fast-paced working nonstop had ended. And then I went from that to living in the middle of nowhere, doing nothing, having no Wi-Fi, and just sitting with myself and nature, which was truly what I needed. I mean, there was a lot of loneliness happening for me, and a lot of, I think, fear of the unknown, of not having any idea of what was coming next, and having this just massive identity crisis. there were moments in it where I was in a pretty depressed state and it was hard for me to see my way out of it. I just, it was a lot for me to go through, which I absolutely needed. And I'm extremely grateful for, and so grateful that I had that time to really go through all of this. And, in the beginning, I could speak about it from this place of having this like cognitive understanding of the material, right? But there's a big difference between that and then bridging that into this lived wisdom that lives in my heart, but also in every cell of my body. And I honestly feel like I'm still going through some of that. I'm still having these aha moments where I'm like, oh, okay, I get it on a much deeper level now. And that's like the same as what you're saying with being frustrated. I mean, like I think we had a conversation about this a couple of days ago where I was saying, wow, I was having the same feeling about another session that we just did very recently. It was like, how are we back here again? But that's just the way things are, right? It's like the endless spiral, and you come back, but you understand something on a much deeper level. And so there's a much deeper healing or clearing or understanding or whatever it is of that. And that's the beauty of these stories. And I think it would be cool for people that did listen to the first season 2 years ago to maybe try going back and listening to some of them and seeing how they would hit you differently, because you've evolved so much. I just think that's such a wonderful part of these stories is, for us, of course, they hit differently every time. And there's always new things to be revealed when we listen to them or discuss them.
Yeah. I mean, it is truly a living wisdom.
Yeah.
Any of this type of work is always ever changing, because every moment of every day is changing in our perspectives and all the things. So it is a growth. It is constantly expanding. I feel like, yeah, 2 years seems like a long time, but then it doesn't seem like that long, because your life has changed tremendously. So I feel like if I'm viewing this through your lens, it seems like a lot of things have happened since then, because your life has made some pretty dramatic shifts and changes in the past 2 years. And it's not really like, I mean, I live in the same house. My life is pretty much the same. But you've had like actual physical changes in a pretty big, significant way. So if I'm looking through your lens, it's like, it seems like a lot in 2 years. But then if I'm looking at it through my lens, it's like there's things that I've understood from doing all of this work with you. But I can kind of like follow it in this, like it's like makes sense. Like you can, but with yours, there's a lot of chaos because all of the physical changes too. Like you add that along with what you're saying. Like you had this job that was like this high-paced job, and you had to stay very focused. Like everything about your life has changed. So
it's been a complete upheaval in the last 5 years, and in a really great way. Obviously needed to happen, but going through that is not always, it doesn't always feel great. There's going through that level of unknown in almost every area of my life. That's what I think felt so insane to me there was not a single area of my life that was untouched by this big transformation.
Yeah.
That at sometimes was what just felt like oh my God, I don't want to get out of bed. This is really,
that's a really good way to put it, because I didn't think about, there's truly not a single part of your life that has not been touched by this. And that, I think that's an accurate statement.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think it's I heard somebody say, it's like, we all are used to hearing that midlife crisis thing, right? And it's like, no, what about, it's like your midlife awakening. That's what it was for me and continues to be. And having that deep awakening isn't, like I said, it's not always just sunshine and roses and, fairy dust. It's like No, you're going pretty deep into the shadows to figure out what's going on and the patterns that you've been unconsciously living by your entire life. And then you've got to burn them all down. And then you've got to go through this entire death and rebirth process over and over and over again. And that's not always easy. So that's been a lot of my 2 years. And there have been many moments too where this came into my head a second ago of like, again, and I should say, like, in amidst all of that, there's been so many profound understandings and learnings. And I'm so grateful to have a friend like you that I can talk to for 2 hours a day sometimes and process a lot of the stuff that I've been experiencing and feeling. And so one of these days I called you. This was a few months ago, I believe. And I had been going through some morning, I do a lot of like morning embodiment exercises for myself. That's kind of a thing that I've been into lately. And so at this time period, I was just working with the divine feminine for a while and then the divine masculine. And so then I came to a place where I was integrating both of those energies within me and feeling this third creation energy come through. And I called you the one day and it's like, I finally got it, and I'm telling you this, and you're just like, you were silent for a while when I was telling you this. So I kind of
I
knew
remember this conversation.
that you were like, what the hell is she talking about? Because it was this understanding on a very cellular level in my body, where working with the feminine and the masculine and then feeling them come into this union literally within my body and having this like explosive creation energy come through. I was able to see the wandering star stories and like I've been able to look at them as like this archetypal journey and this mythic quest, the hero's journey, etc. But this was like, okay, I was able to see all of the lives the feminine had to go through in order to get to number 13, where she is in this fully expressed place where she shows up just like on mission, on purpose, filled with love, doesn't give a fuck what anybody thinks about her, isn't doing this shit for money or notoriety. It's just like, because this is what she wants to do and she fucking loves it. Right. And then the grandfather or the masculine energy from the very beginning, having to go through all of the things that the masculine goes through until he can show up in number 13 as the grandfather in the same place as the girl, just like super excited to do this thing and just wanting to express, full of love, all of that. And then when they come together, what happens in this fountain is, I mean, that's this story. It's fucking incredible, right? And it was like, my mind was blown, even though like I already knew this. It was that, like I said, feeling it on a cellular level where I was like, whoa, okay, now I really get how deep and just how beautiful and profound. And it's like, if you ever thought while listening to these stories that I'm just making this stuff up or like I don't know, I could never come up. Like the symbolism in these is so insanely beautiful. And sometimes we don't even really grasp it until months or years later, even. And it's just incredible. But when I called you to tell you this, you were like, what the hell?
Yeah, because we've had I was like blown away because if you obviously, just like in dreams or anything that comes through like this through us, it's always a projection and a reflection of parts of ourselves and expressing that. And so we've shared in the first season, all of them, like there were moments like in our personal relationships, in our own lives, and with one another, there were moments where it was like so apparent to me that like a jealousy moment in one of them where it was insatiable madness. There was like a conversation we had right before we did the session. I was telling you how I had like this weird jealousy moment with you. And then it was like so apparent to me in the session that, oh my gosh, like I'm this like jealous roommate right now, like this asshole guy. And so, and I was feeling that like in the moment of it. And so the grandfather and the granddaughter in number 13 was obviously you and I coming together in this perfect union at the end. And that's why it felt so complete. And so it's important to like, that's not just you and I, you know? So when I say that, it's not like, oh, this is the masculine and feminine. Like you're in these sessions, I am the one that is using more of my logical mind. And so that is the more masculine energy. So, and you're in the experience having this emotional, embodied experience of the characters. And I'm logically trying to understand. So it is the representation of our roles as we're doing this together also. And so to me, like that was like the bigger like that it's like, wow, like this is how this is working, you know? And so that conversation where you called me, I was like, I just assumed because of using too much logic sometimes that because I see this work as the point of the work is to gain and gather emotional intelligence that can help us in this current incarnation that we are in today with all clients that come to see me. Like that is the point, like to gain emotional intelligence that we can actually use in this real time situation. And so I made the assumption that, oh, okay, you gain this emotional intelligence and so therefore you understand it and it's embodied. It's like all there. That's all you feel. And I didn't consider at all like the integration process. And even though that happens for me also, like it takes me time, like you said, even like years later, things will come in where I'm like all the time I'm referencing these experiences in Wandering Star in my life all the time. I use them as like a reference point and they change. The meaning changes and the understanding changes. So yes, I remember that conversation. It was kind of it, and that's a perfect example of like I make assumptions all the time that things are a certain way, and then I realize like this frustration that I was talking about. The experience that you had in the beginning of this one with being able to see through the lens of your grandfather's mind is part of the frustration in the actual session. So in this session, it was this so beautiful and profound and amazing thing. And then later on down the road in the session itself, it's this certain frustration because coming from it from a place of assumption, like you already know the thing that you forgot. So there's a point where you have forgotten something and you had to forget something in order to have this other type of learning. And so it's like, it's kind of like we know that supposedly if reincarnation is real, okay, we're gonna make this agreement to come into this lifetime to achieve these certain things and learn these certain lessons. And so you have to remember that once you come in here, you're gonna forget all that you've known. And so that forgetting of things is, I used to look at it as just like, oh, you have to just forget everything that you've ever known. But now that we have been doing this for so long, it's like, okay, well, just forget this one little thing here for a moment. Like, you don't have to forget everything, but just forget this one thing. And then, so all of these other things can really come together with an understanding of what these other experiences are like if you forget this one extremely important part, so that we're able to have perspective, infinite perspectives of things.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having to forget everything, it's like, okay, so now you are like, you remember everything essentially that you need to know. But now you're just going to forget this one part. And then this whole thing, you're going to have this experience. And then, okay, you're going to remember that. So there's always something to forget, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is. I've taken up a practice in the mornings too of like, what do I need to remember today? Because of this, because it's so easy to forget. You forget and remember how many times throughout the day, certain things. you know, and bringing that into my awareness first thing in the morning of like, what did I forget overnight? What do I need to remember today? It's been really helpful to just keep coming back to like, oh yeah, no, there's this thing I remembered, because it does take time. Like we've had so many incredible downloads the last month, I'd say. And with that, and they're becoming quicker and quicker for both of us. And so for me, then it's like, okay, now all of this, and it's like that point where it's like, okay, it's in here and it's moving around and I can feel it, but it's not in every cell of my body yet. Right. And it almost feels to me like if I do that practice of what did I forget, I'm continuing to bring myself back to that. Like, and I honestly do these practices where I can feel that information and I can visualize it like waking up in every cell of my body. And it's like, okay, let's go, you know, time to remember, which is a kind of a fun practice, but
that's super fun. And also it's like, it's important to just remember, I think for me, like if you're looking at this as on a, like a global scale or a worldly scale or whatever the plan is experiencing right now, it is, if we can remember that we always forget, then it's very much easier to have compassion for everyone.
Yeah.
You know,
which is what we really need right now, is a bit more compassion for each other instead of all of the hatred and the arguing and the division.
absolutely. And so if we truly remember that people just forget things, like we're all just forgetting things all the time. These are literally, like you're talking about, these are all just patterns of remembering and forgetting things. Like, you know, people forget just to be nice all the time.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, forget that it actually feels better to be together than divided or whatever. But it's all for learning purpose. So it's much easier to release the judgment if we're just, you know, remembering that we're all forgetting.
We all have collective amnesia. Well, so something else I wanted to just touch on, if you're interested, in how, well, I'd say for myself, I've gotten into a lot of stuff over the last 2 years because it felt like I was on this quest for, well, what am I going to do with my life now? Tried to cook again and realized that that's not really what I want to get back into full time. And so I've been dabbling in a lot of other things, just trying to feel into what lights me up, you know? So one of those things has been the deeper study of archetypes, which we had, I think, discussed briefly in the first season of Wandering Star, but I wasn't going that deep into it because there was so much other stuff for me to work through that I wasn't ready to go deeper with it yet. But that has been something I've explored a lot of the last couple of years, and have been able to really look at the archetypes that showed up in Wandering Star, because there's many that show up a number of times. I think the victim shows up more than anybody, which is very telling and interesting. But you have the warrior comes through a few times, and the alchemist, and so for me, studying archetypes in a deeper level has given me a deeper understanding of, okay, well, if the victim archetype showed up in Wandering Star in pretty much every story, I'm going to say, I think pretty much every story. And it's funny, I had a friend that listened to Wandering Star, or actually she was reading the stories. She prefers to read versus listen. And she was about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through. And she calls me and she's like, why are you always the victim? You are the victim in every single one of these stories. You're never the perpetrator. I was like, yeah, I think that's something for me to look at, don't you think? And it really was. It's like, whoa, I was so attached to this victim mentality in a way that I really had no idea, like how much that defined who I was, who I am in this lifetime. So I like to think of archetypes as like they're just threads of energy, patterns of personality, or patterns of power, right? That exist within us and within the entire world. They're ways in which we relate to each other and to the world that we live in. And so thinking about that thread of like the victim within me is like, whoa, you know, but the first step truly is, gosh, even having this awareness of it. I think Richard Rudd says that allow, accept, embrace, right? So allowing for this victim archetype to be there so strongly within me without judgment, right? I think at first I kind of came at it from that space of judgment, but that doesn't help anything. So just allowing it, like, okay, this is pretty strong here, and just having an awareness of it and accepting, and then coming to a point where I can actually embrace it and then use it as, fuel. That's it's been really fun for me playing with archetypes in ways that with Wandering Star, and then in other areas where I've kind of turned archetypes into these embodied journeys that I lead people through, which has been really fun. And then your experience with archetypes has really come through in your work with the gene keys. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I've really gone deeply into the gene keys and have brought the gene keys as another part of working with people. It's incredible. And I think it's another example of you and I's personality, and this, like, the things that, because oftentimes you and I are at these opposite ends of understandings of things. And it's like we're seeing like totally opposite ends of the spectrum, but yet it is all. And so I think of it in like in the gene keys program, for example, or modality, these gene keys have, so for anybody that's not familiar with the gene keys, check out richardruddgenekeys.com. It's astrology and the I Ching. It's incredible. But in the gene keys work, each gene key has a programming partner. So and that's kind of how I view or experience you and I's relationship in doing this work together. I feel like we are like programming partners, like in the gene keys system, as they're almost at opposite ends of the spectrum. And so the whole idea and the whole basis of the gene keys is contemplating these 3 words within each key, which are a shadow, a gift, and a siddhi. This siddhi in Siddhi. So it's a Sanskrit word for the divine potential, the highest potential of that key. And so I feel like you and I are doing this in the way that we are working with archetypes. Is the way that I perceive it is that we are like programming partners that kind of force each other to, not force each other, but allow each other to experience these messages and these learnings and all of these things from complete opposite ends of the spectrum. And that's the perfect example. Like, you are much more into the characters and the archetypes in this way that is, how would you describe it? Like more
Well, the way that I work with them really activates my imagination more. I get deep into the characters. It brings back my old love of theater and writing, which was what I was really into when I was younger, and I completely abandoned because of career.
Right.
So that's for me why it's like it's bringing back this these magical worlds that I left when I was younger. So that to me.
For you, it's like through self-expression, and then bringing that into groups of people where you're bringing that energy into groups of people so that they're able to feel what it feels like to express through these archetypes, which is much more feminine qualities to that, if you were going to label it in such a way. And so for me, it's like working with people from a much more logical perspective, which is the perfect example of why I like the gene keys, because I like to, I mean, when we first started doing this work together and doing the sessions in the beginning, it was all kinds of Carl Jung is like, I believe that Carl Jung describes this work better than anybody that I've come across so far. And even though my certification is through Dolores Cannon, I much more interpret this type of work from a Carl Jung perspective. I never did really believe that these are actual past life experiences, but I also am fully willing to believe it. If somebody could prove it to me, I'm totally open to all of it. But I definitely come from a much more logical, because the gene keys, you love the gene keys. You've gone through plenty of the gene keys work, but it will bore you at some point. And that doesn't happen for me, because I have, like, in my life's work, I have the shadow of the intellect, which is the perfect example, because I really like to logically think about things to the point where it is a problem at some times.
And then speaking of like the life's work sphere and linking that back to my, this whole victim thing for me, my life's work is the number 47. And the shadow of that is oppression. The gift of that is transmutation. And the city of that is transfiguration. And I actually have that 47 3 times in my chart. So I have always I remember the first time I read the key. I think I read it before I listened to it in the activation sequence. And I was thinking about oppression. And visually, I always saw it as this giant hand coming down and like squashing me. And then I came to a realization pretty quickly that it was actually my hand, that was doing the shrinking. So that is a great example of how that 47, and 3 times in my chart, and linking that, like the idea of almost loving the feeling of being oppressed, being addicted to this idea of being a victim. Like, it sounds gross. I can sit here right now and say, no, I don't want to be a victim, or that, I would never want to be a victim, but that's just not true, because there has always been this unconscious part of me that really fucking loved it. I really did. And I'm not ashamed to say that now. And I'm not even like, I'm not judging that. That's just the way it was. And I think that a lot of people are in that same boat, and we don't even really realize it. And so
if you think about, so the whole point of the Gene Keys is to truly embrace the shadow so that you can receive the gift, because the gift is within the shadow. And if you think about Wandering Star and what you just said, it's like, that's absolutely incredible. That's the perfect example of fully embracing the victim role and being able to feel all of those different feelings and all of those different experiences of all of those victims. So like, why wouldn't you love it? It's like these amazing, powerful stories that come through, and it is a lot of power in that.
And in almost every one of them, like the victim, then they sort of come out the hero in the end, right?
Yeah,
This is the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And so for me in this life, for myself, it's been so cool to continue to tie parallels from all of these stories to moments in my life or patterns that I've been playing out, these archetypes totally unconsciously, and then being able to catch myself in those patterns. Like, oh no, wait a minute, I don't really want to play this pattern out anymore. I'm going to do like pattern interrupt and then try something new. It's like there's a new choice point all the time. And even in relationships, it's cool to be able to witness the archetypes coming through in other people. And, it's fun to just observe. And then also for myself to see, like, how do I interact with somebody when their saboteur is coming out or their warrior is coming out from the shadow side, and it's all of this anger. It's just, to me, it's super fun. And you're so right, it's all about self-expression. And I would dress up as these characters all the time if I if I had my way, parading around town.
Well, and also it is I mean, because you also, a part of you also did create the villain. So you are the creator of all of the characters. And so, or the one that's expressing all of them in your experience. And so even it's the same thing as dreams. It's like, if we have this idea about somebody in our lives or something, and we think that they're like this evil person or something, and that is expressed through a dream or one of these sessions, for example, and it's like, oh, that's my brother or my whatever, my mom or whatever, somebody that we know. It is, and sometimes in dreams, I think we make the mistake of thinking like, I knew that person was evil or whatever. Got to see it, like firsthand in my dream. And it's still us projecting a belief that we have. It's still a creation of our own. So it's not like God is going to say, okay, this person that you think is against you in some way, I'm going to let you experience for this little moment that you're right, that this person's a shitty person. And now you have this dream, and I do this I just had a dream recently where it was like with my boyfriend where I did not like the situation and I was like upset and pissed off when I woke up in the morning. And I know logically, like, no, I'm projecting some sort of insecurity that I have about myself. And and so this scenario is being created through me. And so thinking about Wandering Star, like you are every single character in every single one of those stories. We all are. And so I think that when you can really, because even in you and I talking about this and thinking about where we want to take it to these next levels, we've had conversations where it's like, okay, well, we need to, in order for character development in these, we need to embody each of these characters. And in conversation, I've even thought with you, like, okay, well, like in number one, for example, I don't want to be the girl. Like I'm the grandfather, you're the victim, and I don't want to be that character. And it's just funny because nobody really does.
Right. Except me. Yeah. It's, well, that
Because he is the one that gets to experience ultimate freedom.
Yeah, true. Very true. It's the full spectrum. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so that feeling the archetypes on this much deeper level has also given me the ability to actually know that concept of we are all one. Cause like I know now for sure every single character. I think I said this in the previous season. But again, it's that now knowing it on a cellular level of like, I am all of those characters. Yes, I am, the dude that beheads the guy. Like, that's me too. Um, and I think, like you, I have become less attached or convinced that these are actual lives that we've gone back into. And I've become more open to, truly not knowing. And I don't care there's no feeling like I absolutely have to know what it is. But I think we've been able to approach it from a perspective of we really feel like anything is possible. So yeah, they could be past lives. We could be just tapping into different timelines, tapping into the, collective unconscious, going into the future, hopping dimensions. Like we don't know exactly where we're going necessarily. I think our belief in working with each other and our trust in each other has, of course, deepened with time, and our trust in the idea that anything is possible and in ourselves. Like, I was so new to all of this, and you were pretty new to the work too with QHHT, that now there's a deeper level of confidence and knowing. And for me, it's more like this: there's a conviction. I get information because I do my own journeying and meditation a lot, and I get a lot of information that way. And I don't doubt it anymore. I'm not second guessing it. I'm not like, it's like, oh no, I received this. I know this means something. I might not quite understand it at the moment it comes through, but guaranteed within a day, a week, a month, a year, I'll understand what it meant. And that's part of like what I love about our friendship is we get to decode this stuff together. It's super fun. And I think that's what we're both so excited about for this new season and beyond, is like we have some new experiments to bring in and new ideas. And the next stories that come through are very different from where we've been. And that really solidified the idea, the knowing within both of us that, whoa, okay, we're tapping into something really extraordinary, and this is really fucking cool. So,
well, this is just coming to me. I think it's just coming to me in this moment where I'm understanding the need for the 2-year break in a different way right now.
Okay.
Because we talk about in Wandering Star, like we started this with you not having any belief in any higher power or anything like that, really. Like
Right.
Pretty much an atheist.
Right.
I was the total opposite end, where I truly believe that God existed within everything. God is the creator of everything. And so recently I had an understanding that, and I believe that I had such a strong belief in that because I spent so much time alone as a small child. And so that was my relationship, was with God. And so I didn't realize, I think that your 2-year time period where you changed that belief from being an atheist to something, this greater power or this source or whatever you want to call it, the collective, whatever you want to call it, the divine, that connection had to really sink in for you over these past 2 years, because now we get to come together and like truly play together. For me, it's a huge learning, and I'm super excited about it because I really didn't realize until very recently, like this past weekend, that I thought I was so lucky because I didn't have anyone telling me I was wrong about anything in my life. And now I can't had an experience where these few moments of memories, I think this is true for most people. We have like a handful of glimpses of memories that we replay in our mind. And mine are always alone in the woods, walking down doing these specific things. And you were with me in this. And like, I realized like, okay, this is how we can actually change the past. And I didn't realize the excitement that I could truly feel working with somebody, or playing with somebody, I should say, childhood stuff. And that's what brings me so much excitement, because I'm so excited to play in this world with somebody who truly believes that anything and everything is possible, because I didn't think that was possible. I thought I was going to have to just have this belief my whole life, and it's fine if nobody else believes it. And now knowing that two people that actually believe that that is possible, that truly anything and everything is possible, is really magical. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
it's like the ultimate. And so we've already experienced this since number 14. The stories have not been written yet, but that is what starts coming in. And it's like, this is incredible. So it will become much more clear of why we don't really stay attached to were these past lives or not, because, we could believe like this is your actual, it doesn't matter to us because we know that.
Right. Well, you can look at at the one that I just read. That's absolutely happening in this time frame. That's not going back in time. It is 100% this time that, but
I
we
think
don't need to get into like the nature of time or anything like that. But yeah, I think at the end of number 13, we were talking about this a little bit of like, well, we don't really know because this definitely felt like it's happening now. But what comes next really takes us into a whole new world of anything is possible. And I absolutely agree with you. Yeah. It's like, this is fun. And we both, for the last couple of years, we've realized that neither of us had experienced the level of excitement that we felt at the beginning of the creation of Wandering Star until the last few weeks, when we are like, okay, we're doing it again. We're back in creation mode. Was so exciting for both of us to do this. And then for me, the excitement grew when I had the realization that, God, I haven't felt this level of excitement since then. And then sort of tracking throughout my life, like, what are the times where I felt the most excited for things, or this thrill, and I could say that I felt that at the start of the creation of my last business, when it was in the very early phases and I was ready to like conquer the culinary world as a young female. And I think then I felt it. But then other times in my life, going back, it was like I experienced that level of excitement and thrill for doing something naughty. Which we realized is a shared belief we both have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we definitely, and this is I think this is part of our, sorry about that. I think this is part of, this is like the excitement that comes from creation rather than destruction, because you and I have agreed that we've spent a lot of time especially as children and young adults and teenagers get it. Because there's a point where it's like, I don't know, not to get too far into that, but yes, this is all about excitement through creation rather than destruction, which is what I'm very excited about with this. And I think and it is, you're right, it is what's happening right now on the planet. If you look at any of the astrology or anything energetically that's happening on the planet right now, it's pretty obvious that we're in the midst of something huge.
Mhm.
And I do believe that it has to do with true freedom. And I think that the ultimate freedom from the mind games and the mind traps and all of that is what we are beginning to experience right now. And I think that that is absolutely our role and how what we come to share, the freedom of expression and freedom to be ourselves.
And that's the whole point of that story that I just read. That's like that. So you could look at the start of Wandering Star as being the ultimate victim, as held captive on a pirate ship. And then number 14 being what felt to me like a just absolute freedom, the freedom to allow this animating life force energy to just flow through unrestricted, and just being this authentic expression of your own creative genius, which we all have. And for many of us, it's just lays dormant. It's like for me, what I just said before is, sure, I love to cook. I'm really good at it. But I abandoned these things that I really loved when I was a child. The expressing myself through theater and writing and all, and those things fell to the wayside. And that feels like now this thread has come back to me, and I'm figuring out how to like weave it into my life in this new way. And it feels really exciting, like at the prospect. And so instead of staying within that same belief structure, this paradigm of, well, I can only do this thing if I can fit it into this little career box, and it has to make me X amount of money, and I put all of these restrictions on it. That's like, well, then I'm totally obstructing that life force energy, that creative genius to come out of me, because I'm giving it all of these guidelines and regulations. Like, it can only look like this, and it can only come out on Tuesdays, and the other days of the week I have to do this other thing to make the money. And it's like, if we can just, oppression, if we can just let all of that go and allow it's the thing that lights you up, right? It's the thing that brings you so much excitement when you think about it, or you just like, you can't wait to do it. And for me, that's what this feels like, right? That's this excitement, which to me is like my soul's way of saying, ding, 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 you're on the right path, keep going. And I don't need to know what it looks like a year from now or 5 years from now. And I don't need to put it in the like career box. I just need to allow it to keep coming through and following that thread a little bit more every day. And so there definitely is a level of trust and surrender to it, because it can feel scary of like, well, particularly when you live in this matrix of taxes and bills and all of that stuff, it's scary to say like, well, there is the thing that I can count on to make me money, but it doesn't bring me joy and fulfillment. And then there's the other thing that really lights me the fuck up, but I have no idea how I'm going to pay my bills doing it. There's, it can be a little challenging at times, or scary, but I feel like I've been able to get to a point where I'm like in full trust that if I just keep doing the thing that lights me up, like it's all going to be great. It's all going to be okay. And in the meantime, I get to play with you, my very good friend, and do these super fun things. And so, yeah, sign me up.
Seriously. Yeah, we should get together and play and do our next, because I feel like we should probably wrap this conversation up, but I think that we should tell people stay tuned, because we're gonna go play here soon.
Gosh, yes. Yeah. The next videos, we'll have a whole thing on YouTube this time around too, but you'll be able to join us in the adventure.
Yeah.
Real time, and participate too in the anything is possible.
Yes,
It'll be a co-creation.
absolutely. Yeah, that's gonna
Yeah.
it's gonna be super fun. So anybody that, just so you know, we're gonna hope for interaction in the questions and comments, or contact us in some sort of way to participate in anything that comes to mind, like a question that you might have, or a suggestion of maybe a place to go to if it's reasonable for us, or whatever. Like
Yeah.
we're open to everything.
That we
I
are.
mean, almost everything. Don't get carried away with it.
Yeah, that's gosh. Yeah. Okay. Well, that wraps it up for today, I suppose. So we shall see you soon, sooner than 2 years. Keep taking back.
Yeah, we are responsible for technical things right now, so a little patience is appreciated.
Yes, there's a learning curve that we're trying with.
To be really excited about also.
Yes, we're thrilled about it. Yeah. Gosh. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay. Bye for now.